Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg recently went on Andrew Schultz's podcast to tell him and his podcast bros that they're chumps for believing anything Trump says ever. Buttigieg's main point was that Trump rarely, if ever, delivers on the promises that he makes to the people. Schulz argued back that at least Trump has good messaging. For those of you who don't know, Andrew Schulz is a stand-up comedian and podcaster who appeals to a more right-wing crowd. He holds some typical manosphere views, regularly criticizing wokeness and speaking about what masculinity means to him. To be fair, I don't think he has the worst take where the latter is concerned. He recently referred to Mark Zuckerberg as one of the GOATs, saying his rebrand was such a success that he's now considered to be cool. By who, I don't know. I have no idea. I thought the rebrand was sad and very difficult to watch, and I thought most people felt similarly, but I could be wrong. Schulz isn't rabidly MAGA or anything like that, but he did host Trump on his podcast. Trump even invited him to the inauguration, but Schulz declined the invite. During the Trump interview, Schulz asked Trump about some pretty specific issues that I think most Americans can actually get behind. Protections for IVF, for example, American corporations profiteering from war and the suffering of millions, and a pathway to citizenship and some empathy for illegal immigrants who are already quietly and peacefully working and living in this country. On that note, let's jump to the interview with Buttigieg. Here, Buttigieg tells Schulz that Trump says a lot of things, but does less.
If you look at the actual conservative governing plan, though, not the talk, not the campaigning, not the posturing, what they actually do.
Okay.
I would say the biggest social policy commitment that they've made that they actually care about to the point that they actually went through and kept it was to get rid of the right to choose. Number one project, the Republican Party on the social side.
Yeah.
It's one of the few promises they actually kept.
Yeah, that's valid, yeah.
And then economically, the biggest promise they've actually kept is tax cuts for the rich. So to me, like, most of the stuff he said he was going to do, he didn't actually do. He didn't do the big infrastructure bill he talked about. We actually did it. He didn't even build the wall. That's the thing. Build the wall was like a galvanizing statement. It's not like he actually did it.
That's valid, dude. That's what one of the guys said. Not that Pete Buttigieg needs me to explain his words, but he's basically asking Trump fans to be a little bit critical about the things that Trump says versus the things that Trump does. But Schulz pushes back, arguing that people only hear the things he says, which are usually short, concise, quotable statements, compared to the Democrats who just have too many words. One of his guys suggested to Buttigieg, and this is a quote, "Speak to people on an emotional level, even if it's not realistic." What? It's like, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies, even though I know they're lies and I'm still happy to fall for them. I don't know why people would resonate with that, which is why I guess I'm sitting over here on the left. I don't want to be lied to. I don't know who wants that. Why would anybody want that? Buttigieg goes on to tell Schulz exactly what he wants for the American people. And by the end of it, Schulz agrees that he too wants those things. And here's Schultz's response.
I liked hearing that. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was beautiful. I know you want that. Tell me that it's going to happen.
We can make it.
And then how is it going to happen? Like, that's the difference between, like, it's build the wall. And I keep harping on this, but I think it's important for Democrats to understand the effectiveness of that statement. Build the wall wasn't even about build the wall.
Right.
It's an idea.
It was an idea that satisfied a concern that people felt. And I think that there's a lot of Americans that are at the end of their hope. Right? And they feel really disillusioned and they feel this lack of trust that we've spoken about today. And simply wanting things that they want isn't enough.
I'm pretty sure I've said it in other videos or I've said it on the live shows. We need more than just empathy and sympathy and condolences from the Democratic elected leaders. We need more from them than just acknowledgments of how we feel and reassurances that they're on our side emotionally. They are the elected officials. They're the ones who campaign for the job, for the privilege to at least attempt to solve those problems for us. They said they could do it. Empathy and compassion are the bare minimum expectations for elected representatives. They're supposed to do more because they promised us that they would at least try to do more. We barely get that much from them these days. But to Schultz's other point, the tell me what you're going to do point, I thought that was lacking. I get where he's coming from. People like something pithy that they can hang on to. But the reality is that you're not going to get safer neighborhoods by putting security guards in front of people's doors or by punishing petty crime. It might sound good, but it's not going to actually do much to keep neighborhoods safe. You eliminate petty crime by eliminating the need or the motivation for people to turn to petty crime in the first place. And those types of solutions are more easily found in one of Elizabeth Warren's big binders where she has all of her plans than they are summed up in one catchy catchphrase. They're not easy or simple solutions, and they often cost money, and they often take time to implement. Nothing real or enduring or sustainable in the politics of making life better for the masses can possibly be the political equivalent of a Band-Aid solution. And I admit, I think this is one of the big reasons that Democrats have this messaging problem that we're all so familiar with. And I think it's why they can't seem to solve this problem that they know they need to solve. They already knew they needed to solve it before Andrew Schulz pointed it out to Pete Buttigieg. To Schultz's credit, he seems like he tries to stay open in his views, even though personally, I think he's a little bit more forgiving of certain things than I am. But his overall message is a pretty populist one. In his mind, he's being fair to both sides in his criticisms, and he is a man of the people. And some of the contentions he brings up with the Democratic Party are the same ones that Democratic voters have with the Democratic Party. But as much as Schulz said things that have already been said to death, he's still expecting these huge ideas to be easily summarized on a bumper sticker. Again, I know what he's saying. I know the Democrats need to figure something out in that respect. But Schulz should keep in mind that it's a lot easier said than done because I think he's oversimplifying the possible solutions to the problems that he's facing. Full disclosure, if you couldn't already tell, I wouldn't call myself a fan of Andrew Schulz. I know that's not surprising to any of you, but I'm not saying that because he interviewed Trump or because he appeals to right-wingers. I wasn't a fan of his since before he got all political and let's say just pseudo-Trumpy. I remember seeing him on YouTube, and this was years ago, before he really blew up. And I think he had a video go viral and it made me laugh, but it was a fairly predictable joke. Then I looked at some more of his stuff and the rest of it was less funny than the clip that had gone viral and yes, still fairly predictable. So imagine my surprise when this is the guy that I start seeing everywhere a few years later. He's got a huge podcast. He has a special on Netflix. He's got a show called Schultz Saves America. Look, I'm not trying to knock his hustle. Respect to him for doing so well. I'm not one to hate on someone else doing well unless I think that them doing well is somehow hurting other people. And I don't think that's the case here. I don't think he's a bad person. I get that he has a very specific audience with whom his message resonates, and I'm not in that audience. And it's not like I haven't tried. I've listened to his stuff here and there, and honestly, not even with any kind of existing bias, apart from a weak first impression he had made years prior. But people often get better at their craft, so I assumed he probably did too. But back then, he was just a stand-up. Now he's a political podcaster, and a lot of his takes feel somewhat surface level, sometimes ill-informed, and yes, predictable. And still not funny, not to me at least. Again, I acknowledge and accept that I am not in his target audience and that's fine. And now Andrew Schulz is here to save America, which is presumptuous, sure, but snarky enough for television. He made a smart move delving into right-wing-ish politics. Not that I'm saying that it's an act. I believe he believes the things that he's saying, and his intentions actually seem to be pure and honest. He feels authentic, which I'm sure is one of the things that his audience loves about him. And from what I know of his stances, he doesn't seem to want other people to suffer just so he can get what he wants out of this administration. And I know I just criticized him for being surface level, but let's be real. Most American voters think about politics at a similar surface level. I'm not even judging them for it. People want to feel happy and safe and supported in their country, in their home. However that happens, you can't blame them for not thinking of politics much further beyond that. I know a lot of times we on the left really wish that they would, but I think it's hard for leftists to remember sometimes that is truly a big ask of people. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.